Welcome to Voice Notes Suck with Jay and Dave.
Series 1, Episode 5, Online Persona. In this episode, we explore the concept of online personas, discussing the differences between personas for brands versus individuals, and the importance of personal branding. We'll delve into the hard work and consistency needed, the role of positivity and language moderation, and the balance between authenticity and exaggeration. Plus, we cover the bravery of being yourself online, celebrating yourself without arrogance, and much more.
Jay, I really enjoyed talking about VR. It was an interesting conversation. But today's not about VR, today's about online personas. And I think it's interesting that we've moved from VR to online personas, because I think there's a lot of crossover in those two topics. And I think VR gives you that opportunity to play out a physical version of your online persona, as well as a visual, written, or content based version of your online persona.
Dude, voice notes suck.
That they do, especially when you forget to say things like voice notes suck. Anyway, you need to respond to my intro, not just say that.
Sorry, what did you say?
It's a voice note. You can play it back. I suppose that's the reason why they don't suck.
Online personas, Dave, they're a very odd thing. I mean, when I've been in VR, for example, I've had an avatar that's been like a fox. I've been a weird anime air pilot. It's just very interesting that I think people hide behind avatars a lot, which is probably, I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Or people express themselves differently. Maybe they express their inner something, inner demons, or maybe they feel they can express themselves differently if they're a different character. But I mean, online personas, they stretch across everything, don't they? I mean, I think people have online personas even when they're on just bog standard social media, to be honest. Do you have an online persona?
There's a lot, and I will come back to I do have an online persona, but it's very, very similar to my real life person, at least I believe so. Maybe just some less colourful language. I think a lot of that's frivolity and fun. A lot of what you've said is allowing your inner child to explore. Like, you can't be like that as an adult, but you can be like that as a child. So I think we've got to be careful on the definitions of these things, because yes, you're right, they can be used as voyeurism or escapism, a way to pretend to be something that you're not, and there are risks to all of that. But there's also a huge amount of fun to be had with all of that, and I think that's an important thing too. I did answer the question about my online persona, but I'd like to go into that in more detail. Do you have an online persona then, Jay? Because I think everyone does. I think everyone has an online persona to a point.
I do. I mean, I've got a few online accounts where I'm representing the Squibbles, my children's brand, and I'm representing Colin Squibbles around the world. So I have to post a specific way for those, and All Hail Hyena, the band. But in regards to my own personal account, I generally leave out the sort of darker, moodier sides of my personal life, which do exist. But I don't feel that it's helpful or useful sometimes online. So I'm quite upbeat. I like to be motivational. I like to be positive and optimistic, which is my character. But I kind of enhance it and exaggerate it a little bit more online, because I feel that it can help people and I'll always do that. If you can uplift people, make people feel good, I'll do that. It helps me as well. It makes me feel good too.
So here's an interesting question from someone that is running branded accounts or brand accounts. How would you define creating a online persona for them? Because they're not people, and it's very clear that they're not people. I mean, this may be, I know this could be, your current band or a previous band, or even the Squibbles, for example. How would you build an online persona for that brand? And how does that differ to creating an online persona for yourself?
That's a really, really good question, Dave. I'll tell you who are a good example, actually, of a very good online persona, Aldi. Their social media is very, very cheeky. It's cheeky, it's confident, it's a bit rebellious. And I feel like if you've got a brand, you have to pick a tone. Your brand should have a tone anyway. If your brand doesn't have a tone, then you have to sit down and really work out what you're going to do, because you need that. You need some kind of personality, even for a brand. I mean, for the Squibbles, for example, it's very positive, upbeat, family friendly. It never strays away from that. It always uses the word we, because the Squibbles are a community at the end of the day. There are a lot of characters. So we is a good way to use a brand. Never use I for a brand.
You made some very good points there about branding a business account or something similar. But I think personal branding is a massive thing now as well. And I think people buy into people far more than they ever have done. And there's a lot of individuals that are branding themselves very successfully on social media in a variety of different ways. How do you, you spoke about being positive as Jay. How do you keep to the standards that you set on your individual social media accounts? How do you keep them branded the way that you want them to?
I have to do it very consciously. I do slip sometimes, very, very rarely. And it's usually when I just forget, because that's just me. But, I'm very conscious about how I smile in a video, which may sound odd, but just to keep the consistency, sometimes I feel like I do smile in a very specific way on videos, which is an odd thing to do in some respects. But my wife sometimes says, Jay, why are you smiling at me with your social media face? And I'm like, what the heck is that? But I mean, there's part of me as well wants it to become a self-fulfilling prophecy too, because there's a lot to be gained from putting yourself out there on social media in a very considered way. Do you do that?
Yes, I do. But because I keep it so close to who I am in general, I don't have to think about it too much. And I can slip at times, and I need to give myself a little friendly kick/hug, say, what are you doing? But I think you'll be able to verify this. You see a lot of my posts on X. I work really hard to presenting myself in as real a way as I possibly can, and I always have done. And that means that I don't have to pretend. I don't have to overly pretend on social media to maybe be something I'm not. And I'm not suggesting that's something that you're doing, by the way. But I know it's something that people do, and that you have to do it to a point, right? People want positive responses. They want to be uplifted on social media. I'm aware of that. I feel like I'm rambling about this now.
Do you need to do it though? Is that actually, do we need to do that, or could we just be our full selves?
I can't be my full self because I'm not particularly child friendly, and part of my values in this space is wanting to to be supportive and enable platforms for everyone. And if I use some of the language that maybe I used in my day-to-day life, I'm not sure children's parents would be overly happy with them associating with me on social media. So like, that's my biggest concern. And then what you said about the negative stuff, like expressing your feelings, and we've spoken about it in a previous episode of Voice Note Stuff as well. The being negative on social media doesn't add value very often to anyone. So I think there's a difference between being real and being willing to express and maybe being a little bit vulnerable to basically whining and having a moan up that doesn't help anyone. And I can be a bit like that too. So I do have to, it's the right way, I do have to be a little bit careful in how I present myself at times. Yeah, I've just had a quick thought on that. It's like you're seeing the professional version of me, like a workplace would see, essentially.
So basically, you're saying that to create the best of yourself online, just be professional and don't go effing and jeffing and all that malarkey. But I think if you're going to express your emotions online, I think that's good. I think it's good to show vulnerability. I think it's really important, actually. More so in video, but not doing it for attention, doing it as more of a discussion topic, doing it as an inspirational way to invite people to talk about their feelings too, because we all have very similar feelings at the end of the day. There aren't that many emotions really, and I think that's one thing that we all share, actually. That's a commonality, isn't it, the way we feel? So opening yourself up online in that way, even though it can be risky, is also really beneficial to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so. I think being professional is important, and because being professional is being understanding that there are other people on social media. And I think if you're looking to generate revenue, drive a business, be a public figure, build a community, I think being professional is the most important thing you can do on social media. And the vulnerable thing, like anecdotally, a lot of people have sent me messages, spoken to me about it on calls, and said that they appreciate the fact that I'm willing to be vulnerable on social media, that it makes a difference, that it helps them. So yeah, I think I'm in full agreement with everything that you've just said.
What about being a professional idiot?
Well, I'm quite good at that. You just need to get to know me outside of social media, I guess.
Well, I was actually talking about myself, Dave, to be quite honest. I feel like a professional clown most of the time. In fact, I feel so much like that I ran out of breath saying it.
Well, personally, I think if you're not doing that, you're building a children's brand wrong, or a young person's brand wrong, especially when you're aiming at 5 to 8 year olds. Like, that's such an important part of the growth and understanding and exploring different things is being able to have fun and to smile and to joke and to laugh.
Yeah, I feel that, I mean, that's my personality anyway, so it kind of makes sense that I just reflect that, albeit in a more exaggerated fashion. But if I just express that online and be stupid, I'll tell you, it takes a lot of humility and confidence to be stupid online, and pull faces and do daft stuff, especially when you've got a teenage daughter. But all their mates think I'm well cool, even when I'm acting like a fool. So that's a win.
It's a win for you. It's not a win for your daughter. If she feels anything like I did growing up, all of my friends thinking my mum was cool was definitely not a win. I think you highlighted something else in that message. Like, it takes a lot to be yourself, even if you're highlighting aspects of yourself or exaggerating them because of your branding. It takes a lot to be yourself online, because it's there, isn't it? Warts and all, like, for everyone to see and for everyone to have an opinion and perspective about. So yeah, it's brave. That's the first thing. It's incredibly brave to be willing to do that.
I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to provide some kind of authenticity to the brand, particularly if they're selling a product or if they're running a business or see themselves as an entrepreneur. It's really important to do that and exaggerate a little bit your actual personality, because without that, people can't connect. And everything needs engagement online. We need things to be a little bit more dramatic, a little bit more exaggerated when we're reading or looking at or listening to things online. It's really important, because you don't want normal everyday stuff, do you, when you go online? Really? You want something to pull you away from that a little bit, don't you? Dave? Dave?
I don't think there's a right answer. And yes, we want it to be a little bit more exciting, but do we want it to be fake? No, I want it to be real. Other people might want it to be fake, but I don't. I want it to be real. And I think the risk with exaggerating your personality into an online persona is that you blur the boundaries between real and what's not real. And do you end up pretending to be someone you aren't online because you've blurred those boundaries? I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's, everyone's got to work this out for themselves. For me, I need to be as close to myself as possible. It's an important thing for me to do.
So I feel like with the written word, that's fine. If you're presenting a video, it's a more difficult scenario. Boundaries feel blurred there, and I think it's okay to blur the boundaries a little bit. Maybe not too much. Maybe I've fallen into the too much category. Maybe I come across in real life like I am online. Because, there are quite a number of people who don't like me. For whatever reasons they have, they don't like me. I think they may think I'm overconfident or arrogant or cocky, or I've got an ego or whatever. I don't have an ego. Well, maybe a little bit. But I need that. I'm in a band. I've got to perform. I perform on videos and things like that. I don't feel like I employ that in real life. I'm a little bit shy in real life in certain situations. So I don't know. Or am I? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm just living a lie, Dave.
It's funny, isn't it? Especially when you get into arrogance or ego, because where's the line between self-confidence and arrogance, or being egotistical? Like, if you're good at something and you don't celebrate it, who else is going to? And if you celebrating it is deemed as arrogant or ego because that's how someone else perceives it, well, then that's their perception and that's on them. So it's a difficult one. It's one I've fought with, people viewing me as arrogant or egotistical because I have a certain confidence, especially if I feel like I'm okay or good at something. I'll talk about it in that way. So yeah, It's interesting. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer, and I think we need to work it out individually. I think it's a lot easier if you're closer to your natural self. It's a lot easier you don't have to pretend. You don't have to be something you're not. You can just be you, but you can smooth some of those rough edges, I guess.
I feel that I've met arrogant people, and arrogance usually has a complete lack of respect for your opinion. It's very inconsiderate personality-wise. They don't consider you in their opinion, in their perceptions. They just don't listen. Arrogance can make people very rude. Ego can make people feel that they're better than you, and I don't do any of those things. I don't think that I'm better than anyone. I always listen to people. I always respect other people's opinions, and I'm always open and forgiving. So I guess this has just made me feel a bit more confident in the fact that I'm not an arrogant person and I don't have a huge ego. I've got some ego, but I feel I've learned how to parent that ego better than I used to, which is a bonus.
I don't think that you think you're better than anyone, and I don't think that you do any of those things either. I also don't think that you're confident enough, or you don't show off your self-confidence enough. You know, you're very, very good at what you do. I certainly think so, and I think you should be more willing to shout about that. And again, it comes back to that: if you're not willing to talk about it, if you're not willing to say, you know, that you're good at something, why would anyone else be willing to say it? It's an important question to ask yourself. Yeah, I've come to the conclusion that I'm not egotistical or arrogant, and if people want to think that about me, then that's their choice, and it's not my decision that they feel that way. I can just keep doing what I do in the way that I do it, try and be as open and honest with myself and everyone else as I can, and then let what happens happens, kind of thing.
Touching on that point then, Dave, about shouting about what you can do and things, how do you do that? Because I always think, oh, you know, if I walk into a room, I don't just suddenly start banging on about all the things I can do. And it's the same on social media. How do you approach it? What's the opener? Why would you do that? Why do you talk about those things? Because sometimes you just come across like, oh, he's just talking about himself. Does that matter?
I don't think it does matter. I mean, if it's all that you're doing, then it's going to create a perception of you. If it's part of the content that you put out there, if it's a percentage, you know, like 20% of 30% of the stuff you put out there is celebrating your successes, is talking about what you do, is showing off the work that you've done, then I don't see that as a bad thing. And people that do see that as a bad thing, then, well, they're not your people. And it's then like using those kind of mechanisms to focus and drill down on the right type of people that are going to support your growth, especially if you're a brand like the Squibbles.
I guess that boils down then to time management and efficiency of social media posts, because if you are running a few accounts, particularly if they're all brands, then you have to manage your time properly, don't you?
I don't think there's a singular right answer. Just like I don't think there's a singular right answer when it comes to our online personas. I think each person, each brand needs to figure it out, needs to play with their boundaries, and needs to define how they fit into this. And it's only the people that are managing those accounts, managing those personas, the people behind the persona, if you like, that are going to be able to figure out what's right for them and what's right for their brand. Like, some of it will come from feedback, but the vast majority of it is going to come from what feels right and what aligns with your goals and values or ethics or morals. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Keep that personality shining, glowing, sparkling. It's been great, Dave. Let's give the listeners a summary. I want to hear a summary.
Jay, it's taken me too long to do this summary. Apologies for the delay. Not that anyone listening will know that, because it'll play right after the last one. But you've had to wait a day, at least a day, maybe even two, for the summary of episode 5 for Voice Notes Suck, Online Personas. Does everyone have an online persona? Yes, they do. Online personas are different for brands and people. Brands should use we instead of I. It helps people connect with the brand. Personal branding is massive and growing all the time. Online personas need hard work and consistency. Positivity is massively important on social media, as is language, and moderating bad language is having an online persona. To create the best version of yourself, professionally and emotionally, is important, and it will help you. Doing daft things takes humility, especially doing them online, because everyone can see your funny faces or your silly videos. It also takes a lot to be yourself online. It's brave, and you know, people have got the opportunity to say what they want because it's the online world. Exaggerating your personality helps add authenticity for video content. It helps people connect with you and engage. The risks of exaggerating your personality and being real, like we spoke about the crossover and where the risks are for both sides. We spoke about celebrating yourself and arrogance. Like, if you've got to celebrate yourself, but you can't make it all of your content, it's got to be a mix of content. Online personas are individual. They'll always be very individual, whether that's for a person or a brand, and only ourselves can work out what's right for us. Jay left us with let your personality shine through. And what a way to finish. This is slightly over 90 seconds, but don't tell anyone. Jay's been Jay, I've been Dave, and we'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to Voice Notes Suck with Jay and Dave.